Hiring managers are looking at portfolios in 2026 and silently filtering for five specific projects, and most developers don't know which five. That's why the rejections feel random. They're not random. There's a checklist. Almost nobody's teaching it, and you're losing offers to people who happen to build the right things first. I'm a software engineer turned AI engineer who has worked with Amazon, Netflix, Apple, and Meta. And the third project on this list, Project 3, is the exact reason I got headhunted by every FAANG company at once. So, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to walk you through all five in order, why each signals something different to hiring managers, and the reason developers who don't have at least three of these in their portfolio by 2027 are going to spend years stuck where they are. So pay attention. Problem right now is that everybody's saying just build projects and just apply everywhere. However, you're still getting ignored. The just build projects just doesn't work anymore. The reality in 2026 is everyone has portfolios. Hiring managers want specific projects of signals that you actually know what you want, that you know what you're talking about, and it's actually relevant to the company and their business needs. It's not just quantity anymore. It's the proof that you could ship and answer the problems and solve their business needs in their space and want to show proof of that. The real shift right now is that your portfolio is not a museum. Its portfolio is supposed to be a signal to the hiring manager that you could actually solve the problem they're looking for. And every project answers a specific issue or a specific thing that a hiring manager is looking for. So the hiring manager asks certain specific questions, and the raw project is basically answering questions that nobody's actually caring about at the moment. So you have to have the right projects to make sure you get the right interviews that basically checks off on their checkbox over here. And these are the five projects that cover the key AI signals that they're looking for. What changed everything for me is that I built these exact projects myself in roughly this order. One thing I definitely would say is the computer vision project definitely changed everything, especially how it involved in basically different pieces of how they came together and how to work with that and figure out the thread and make them all work together. And this is what got recruiters that reach out to me, such as Apple, Amazon, Meta, and Netflix. And the thing is about this is not to basically brag or show that this is impossible or I'm special or anything like that. Is it shows that the projects did the work for you and if you did the strong signals, that is what's going to stick out to them and show them that you know what you're talking about. We need this person to get on the project to solve our issues. So let's list the five AI projects. First project, AI support chatbot. And the chatbot we're talking about actually uses companies' documents. So that basically signals that this is the most in-demand AI skill that every company wants to use. And that doesn't involve, that's not just the deep tech company or the one that are very technical. Every company, even your local business, local franchise want to use that because they want to be able to, if they have a help desk, if they have any type of documentation, anything that's company company's information that's held with it, and they want everyone to have access to. They want this ability so they don't lose information through different means of how they store them. So the stack to learn this, you want to know Python, LLMs, APIs, vector database embeddings. The biggest mistake about this is that people make a toy devil project where they make a simple chatbot, especially a lot of platforms now. One of the first things they show you is how to make a chatbot, but you want the chatbot to actually use real data for the real product to show that you actually give it ingested information that's specific for that company or for that organization. And that only that chatbot is actually given real answers, relative, even up to date information for that company. And not only that, it's also, it shows that it's not hallucinating and making up answers and leading their potential clients or customers down the wrong path. And you also want to show a real front end, basically to show that not only that it actually works, but you take into consideration UX, UI, that the end user using it, it would actually look like a real product and not get turned off by it. The next project you want to care about is fraud detection. This is real machine learning system. Basically what this does is detects anomalies or risky behavior that is not typical of what you normally see in the data set or a client or usage throughout is not normal. And what this signals is that this is real ML skills or machine learning skills. And hiring managers that care for this is fintech, banking, payments, anything that deal with payments, e-commerce, and insurance. So the stack to learn this to basically use this, to do this project, Python, Pandas, scikit-learn. The biggest mistake, again, is only making a Jupyter notebook. You want to show that it's actually working in a real world scenario or a simulated real world scenario that seems similar to what the company with their customers and clients will actually do. And the better approach of that to show this is actually to do an API and deploy it so you can actually see it. That not only you could build it, you could actually release it in production and have a working version of it that actual end users could use in the context they'll use it in. The next project is a computer vision app. Now, this is very important and highly sought out after by many different industries. It mainly deals with like object detection systems in there, and it has real business use case, specifically in retail, as well as logistics, security, healthcare, things of that nature. And it looks at things such as inventory, like what stocks on the shelf, foot traffic, shelf monitoring, in-store analytics, what's happening in real time right now. This project, for me, changed everything. It has massive recruiter interest, mainly because this is all like in real-time information. It's messy. You get partial information sometimes. You see something that's detected. One of the problems it used to have in computer vision, well, it's still there. It's just you have to work around it. Is object permanence. So, for example, if you ever play peekaboo with an infant, the thing is when you actually hide your face up to a certain age, they really believe you're gone because they associate your face with knowing who you are. So if you cover your face, they really think you disappear. Now when you get older, you think, okay, that's ridiculous. I know you're still there because you have other signals to indicate that, such as, well, I can still hear your voice. So I can still partially see your arm. So I know if your arm is there, most likely the rest of you is there. In computer vision, the simple algorithms, if you just integrate them as is, if you're trying to do face detection, if you just cover your face, it doesn't know you're there anymore, right? So that's why in real world data, when you start doing projects like cat versus dog demos or toy demos where you're looking for face detection, you can find out it's really easy to beat it. When you're dealing with real world data, it's harder to figure out use cases where if I'm doing face detection and I can't see their face, how do I know the person is really that person? So that's why this signals that you have real world AI engineering skill sets to figure out, okay, how do I cross-reference other information? Like if to something temporal where I knew you were before and you couldn't just teleport in the next frame. So most likely that is still you, things like that. That's why it's a really high signal to hiring managers, mainly to show like, oh, you know how to actually solve a real world problem with real world scenarios, with messy data. And that is what we need to actually, someone to hire to actually solve our problems or to basically address our business needs. Now the stack for this, Python, PyTorch, because this is more higher level, that you're probably using a lot more specialized algorithms such as YOLO, which, yeah, you only live once, just like that Drake song there. There's an actual paper and algorithm for that as well. And major thing here, deployment. Again, to show in a real world scenario, in a real time, how does this actually work? And that, again, biggest mistake, you show cat versus dog. Well, I mean, type of demo where you're only looking for simple signals, but in real world, you don't have everything so clean or so isolated. How do you deal with a lot anomalies and handle that? Again, this is the highest level project because real world scenarios all the time in all types of industries, not just deep tech want this. Again, I mentioned earlier, retail, logistics, security, and healthcare. So if you're able to solve this, and if you only have one project out of the 5 that I mentioned here, this is probably the one with the biggest leverage because it's probably has the biggest mass appeal and has the biggest impact and one of the hardest for them to solve. The next project is a recommendation system. Now, what this is personalized recommendations. So this is one thing that you see in pretty much any service-based or product or front-facing like SaaS products. You'll see this in e-commerce, streaming, marketplaces, SaaS, anything where that the end users actually interacting with and interfacing with the product or service, and you want them to stay on or to be using the product or service. Basically, these are usually associated with revenue driving systems, at least a lot of them commercially. And what this signals is that, okay, you know how to use machine learning, dealing with real-time data, behavioral, and what will make the user happy in terms of the experience, in terms of what they're looking for. Plus the business value, is it delivering on the business value both to the customer and for the business itself? If you have happy customers, they stay on, which means they'll generate more revenue. And the stack for this, Python, Pandas, ML framework over here, machine learning framework. The biggest mistake on this is actually no production thinking. Basically, how do you start off, let's say, a cold start when you have a brand new user? How does this work? What is the actual interface with it? User experience in the front-facing part is very important because in the real world, if a user doesn't like the interface or doesn't like the experience in 5-10 seconds, you lose them. They leave, you complain about it, it's too much friction, they'll go beyond. So you have to be able to take that into consideration. And why this is so important for businesses, because this shows a real business impact, mainly because you're working directly with revenue generating systems. If you get that optimized, you could definitely see how a person or an engineer, AI engineer or whatnot, will be valuable to the company because the work you do directly impacts basically directly impacts the business impact over here, because you're keeping the customers happy, and keeping them coming back, and keep them on the service or using the services much longer, which generates more revenue. So you definitely would be a lot more valuable to a company and demand higher price bands for your work. Now, this project, this is a big one, an AI note taker. Why is it big? Because this transcends and pretty much applies to every industry and not just the big tech way. So it's an AI meeting assistant. It does transcriptions and summaries, creates follow-ups, identify contacts, highlights main takeaways. Basically, this signals you know how to work with a multi-system AI product and like chain them together. Main stack on this, speech-to-text, LLMs, front-end, deployment. Now, here's the thing I want to bring up. You're probably looking at this, well, doesn't this already exist? Pretty much if you already go into like a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, you automatically get a transcription whether you care about it or not, or you join a meeting and it says, hey, there's an AI note taker coming in here, right? Now, the thing is, the problem right now is it's only transcription. So what happens once that is done? Maybe you get an email where maybe like you transcribe it, put it in a text file, put it somewhere. There's a difference between actually doing the work and communication and actually interpretation. So for example, let's say you work in the QA department, they'll go in and they'll send all the logs that they've ever done. And at the end of the day, they give it to the devs. So they're like, okay, well, communicated, we have all the information and sending it to them. Well, one, it's not necessarily useful to them because when they're sending it in a location that they never look at, it's not their part of the day-to-day. And two, they don't know how to interpret that information. So just transcribing it and dumping it somewhere is the problem that you see with all these note takers right now. The solution is how do you actually take that, transform it, put it in a place that's actually a hub where everyone can get to it, and put it in a place that's interpreted in a format that everyone can understand. That is, for example, if you're dealing with a meeting or you're sending an email, how does the all that information format it and maybe put it on, let's say, maybe Confluence might be the hub or where all your information and documentation lives. And maybe you have a technical writing team and they format it in a certain way. What if everything you've ever done always does that for you automatically? So anytime you need information, this one spot is consistent and it captures every meeting in real time and all updates. And not only that, it also creates a summary, the point of contact, the identify contacts, the important people where they're golden contact to get information if you need, where you continue on that. And if that's consistent, companies will actually pay for that. So just having transcription, yes, that's important, but dealing with it in a format and placing it in a certain way, that is what is useful to a company, and every company deals with this. You don't even have to be deep tech or something that doesn't seem tech at all. Local businesses and franchises all struggle with this. I've seen this across many different industries, and they solve this problem. And it's always the number one thing, despite how amazing or how impressive any other AI solution is. This is the one that every company actually needs. This signals is a real signal that you know how to chain AI workflows together and actually put it useful to the context of the company in their space, looking for information they're looking for, specifically their context, what is important to them that's highlight the main takeaways that's relevant to the company, follow-ups of how to follow up with this and where it lives and such as, and basically also even document old, let's say, workflows or techniques that you have a problem with, brain drain or the buzz factor. If like you have one person, you have tribal knowledge and that one person knows everything. If they get hit by a bus and they're gone tomorrow, all that information is gone. So if this is actually automatically captured, transcribed, and formatted in a certain way, even if the person no longer with the company because they left or other reasons, that information is not lost because other people might not know it, but it's captured in your documentation. And doing AI note taker that processes it and sets everything apart, it sets everything in the correct spot later on is what allows that to happen. And that's why it's super valuable to every company. I want to address what's holding most people back, what pretty much stops them thinking that they can't do it. For example, they may think, well, this is too much things to learn. Now, the thing is about this, it's not if you build it in the right order. It is one of those things that, they say a journey a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. You know your end destination goal. And if you just build little by little, when you look back, you see how far you actually travel. The other thing about this is that these skills actually stack together. It takes just a couple of months, a few months to do this stuff, not years. And the other thing you might be saying is that, okay, well, if you follow your advice and go and do these type of projects, won't everyone have the same type of projects and everyone will be copies? Yeah, well, the problem is most people build tutorials. And I'll definitely say, in my case, I never ever show tutorials, especially when companies reach out to me. I actually build real production versions and show real data and real deployment. And in that context, I'll give you an example. More recently, a company reached out to me and said, okay, well, you have 9 of the 10 skills that we're looking for. There's just one thing that we would like to that you have, but it's very obscure. You never did any work in agriculture. And funny enough, I actually did. Actually, 4 years ago, specifically from this day, I was actually looking at data. Well, actually trying to solve a problem in one domain. And then when I was doing research and found out, well, in agriculture, they actually had a similar problem and solved it, used their real world data and saw how it worked. I basically adapted it and modified it for actual business case that is totally unrelated for it and actually deployed it and it actually worked. That presentation is what I showed and demonstrated to the company. And that's what got them impressed because they're trying to see if, like, how do you actually solve real world data, real problems that haven't been solved before, and basically try to solve our actual business need. And it's something that's seemingly obscure, but it actually solve a problem. You're not going to find that on a demo tutorial. So when you build your own versions and showing how you have business impact, you're not really copying everyone. You're basically showing how we solve the problems given the context and the restrictions and the data and the messy data and the seemingly impossible task and how did you actually overcome it. And that alone automatically puts you over the top 5%. I would say the top 1%, really, in that case, because most people are just basically putting their hand up when they're applying for jobs, sending their resumes into the void, and then basically giving the same tutorial that doesn't prove that you actually know how to solve problems in a seemingly impossible situation. Or basically when I say that is that basically you're dealing with real world data and is not a perfect scenario and you're in a space that nobody has explored before. How do you navigate and solve that? Right now, there's an opportunity window. If you have these projects that I mentioned here, this is what AI hires want, basically hire managers they're looking for. Again, I'll just reiterate, these are the exact signals they're looking for. An AI support chatbot, that would affect pretty much every industry that deals with information and internal data that they want to be able to be accessible to everyone, which is pretty much any industry that's usually front facing with people. And again, this workflow would use RAG for that. A lot of these things are RAG or agentic workflows and whatnot. The other project would be fraud detection, as well as a computer vision app recommendation system, and a really big one as well as AI note taker. Now, few applicants have all 5 of them. And the thing is, these are large in demand and there's a small talent pool. One thing I would say about this is that in general, when you're applying for jobs or they're looking for you for one of these roles, it's usually one of these things that will get their attention. Either like chatbot, fraud detection, computer vision, recommendation system, AI note taker. And reality, when dealing with that, only one project is usually what you need, but you have the other for coverage. So depending on what's needed for the role. If they're looking for more fraud detection, pretty much I would tailor and position myself more for this type of lead with that project and show how you solve that problem. And usually that's enough to get them interested. And if the question comes up, what other projects have you done? Then you bring up all the other ones that are relevant, that has a real business impact. Bringing up toy projects and just giving your link to a GitHub to just toy projects or just things you're messing around with doesn't really interest them. These other things do, but usually it's one that actually captures their attention and the other one works as a reinforcement. This is why you have to kind of cater where you're applying to, and having these in your toolkit. Basically, you could choose, okay, this type of role, I'll lead with this one, right? And once the conversation come about and organically you'll figure out, okay, well, you solve all these other problems as well. And that actually is a strong signal for them. And this is really the advantage right now. Now, the thing is, again, this is an opportunity window. After a while, this is going to become the baseline. So you really want to take advantage of this. Make sure you have these things in your repertoire. You position yourself and you know how to apply and become the signal from the noise from everybody else trying to apply. If you want the exact 6-step program that walks you through building these projects in order with the AI engineering stack and job hunt strategy built in, the link is in the description. It's the same system putting mid-career developers with the 200K plus AI engineering offers right now. Adding this makes the path much easier. It's much easier to execute if you have a roadmap and you have a guide to take you to all the waypoints.